God damn it. Let's see. Is everything good? We do that. Let's see, where can we? Okay. Now is stuff looking all right? So today will be short stream, I think. Just watching the last videos on the Redbull launch, like we have here from Autosport. Redbull's RB20 F1's brave new benchmark. Yeah, brave, really. Okay, and we will also continue with let's see, how much is left to mine? I think it's this row of 3 blocks high. Then I think it's 2 more. Yeah, 2 more. Then is this area almost finished. I mean, the only left to mine out is the walls, that and that wall. So you can see the glass. So yeah, this row of blocks will be removed. And then these 2 rows of blocks will be removed. After that it's more finished, or then it's clean up. But now it's just mining. And hopefully some interesting stuff about Redbull will be said. Maybe some sound is needed.
We may have caught a glimmer of it a few days ago, but Red Bull has finally taken the wraps off what is set to be the car to beat, the RB20. Building
and hopefully it's just McLaren and Ferrari that will be the ones that are closer to beat them, and Mercedes will be nowhere. They maybe sometimes beat Aston Martin when Alonso don't make a good race.
on the RB19 that saw them win all but 1 race last year, Red Bull will be hoping it has taken another step forward in the fight to retain both the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. I am Steph Wentworth, and joining me live from the Red Bull launch is Alex Kalinakis, as well as Jake Boxall-Legg. Let's get straight into it, guys. First, Alex, you are at the launch itself. You've seen the car with your own eyes. What are your thoughts on the RB20?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's talk about what an amazing location. Hat tip to Red Bull's PR chief, Paul Smith, for letting us come back here, have a little sneaking recording. This is where we started the day. All the media, all the fans, everybody who was at the event today started off here. So we got a little look around all the well, not all of them, obviously. I haven't actually counted them, but there's not all of the Red Bulls that they've done in their history. We started off here, and then we moved over to a dedicated launch space where obviously I recorded the film that everybody will have seen of the car. And yeah, I mean, it's important, I think, to address this location first of all, because that was really the message of the team's launch today. A key point of it was this is the RB20, the 20th Red Bull car, obviously the RB16 and RB16B, or it's gonna ruin the continuous streak of one number changing each year. But that was their whole thing, was this is, well, look what we've achieved for our history, and look what we can still go on to achieve together. And the RB20, I mean, it's going to have a lot of significant expectations of it. Not only because of what the RB19 achieved, but also because it is looking dramatically different. I mean, I think the main takeaway.
Yeah, people have said that they gone to zero pods, like similar to what Mercedes did. Well, not 100% similar, but somewhat close to that. Wouldn't that be funny? They succeed to do something that Mercedes tried to do.
Sort of Mercedes-like
okay.
bulges, sort of Louvre, the sort of shelf, whatever word you want.
Like I said,
he used to describe it, that goes on, comes back almost from the halo, goes the length of the engine cover. It looks very dramatic. It looks, I mean, the level of skill involved to machine such a thing.
First diamond.
Tremendously impressive, but it goes beyond.
Man, this is little depressing. After all this mining, this is the first diamond. Man. If I just had mined more to the left, or the right. First diamond this year, or first diamond ore block. See, we need to. Oh shit! We need to.
Beyond that, if you look further down the car, particularly look at the side pod areas, we've got
more
vertical side pod inlets. So what was the last car to have that? Well, it was the Mercedes W14, inspired by the Mercedes W13 before that, the zero pod car. So is that an indication of that's something Red Bull's looking at? We don't know.
No! Oh my god. Will it be funny if Mercedes was right with the car? And now when they have gone away from it, Red Bulls are going to that and will succeed. And if Mercedes has just stayed with it, they will have done a good car now. Oh my god, it must be so depressing for the Mercedes team.
At this stage, the car everybody's seen today is the launch spec car. It's what the team will start the season with. It's very much not got its real floor on it. I think the sort of chatter amongst everybody gathered here was that was very much a fake floor. It looked like it was absolutely solid. Can't imagine they wasted carbon fibre on it. But yeah, don't expect the team to be starting the season with that. But yeah, I think the key takeaway really is that Sergio Perez said it. He thinks that the team has been really brave with the changes that it's made, because yes, it's an evolution, but it's more than that. Let's face it.
Jake, let's talk a little bit more about the car design, because in yesterday's W15 launch video, we spoke about the W14 shoulder bulge, Alex has just alluded to the fact that Red Bull have brought out something similar. What else have we noticed in the new design of this RB20?
Well, I like to look at the
5 diamond ore blocks.
Looking at this, because we got those leaks on Twitter of varying quality. I was trying to look at it as close as I can to kind of get a little bit of an indication of what we'd see today. I think as Alex mentioned, when you look at those side pods, it just seems to be in stark contrast to a trend
this one
that
is
they've set themselves, that Red Bull had set with that kind of protruding lower lip on the inlet. Every team more or less has gravitated towards that, apart from the McLaren MCL38, and now Red Bull has moved away from that. Instead, it's just got this sort of protruding. It's basically where they put the side impact structure. This is the leading edge of the side pods, and rather than going into a kind of conventional inlet, we've got that vertical side pod inlet, and this is kind of paired with quite a sort of heavy undercut. So what we're getting is just this magnified effect of bringing this airflow along around the edges of the floor, trying to improve the pressure distribution over the top of the diffuser, ensure that that's a lot more powerful. and we've got those very sort of heavy set shoulders, like sort
No.
of cannon kind of outlets. Other people have called them as well. And yeah, blending into the halo. It just seems to be, again, very, very inspired by that W14 concept, something that Mercedes itself has moved away from now. So the thing that intrigues me...
Man, what will Mercedes do now? When the car that they have now, like, the fuck do you do? You wasted 2 years to try to make a car that's so good. Now when you finally have 100% went from that, you see your biggest rival going to that. Like, will you go back? Will you try again?
That interests me about it is what has Red Bull seen in these designs that Mercedes couldn't get out of it?
Yeah, true.
Is Red Bull going down the same, I guess, cul-de-sac and it's going to get trapped there? Has it been able to put something together in the wind tunnel that they've been able to unlock some performance from? That's the interesting part of this. What has Red Bull seen in it that caused Mercedes to move away from it? I think obviously we're only going to know when the cars hit the track, but it's hugely interesting that a concept seemingly discarded is relevant to this the team that's won the last 2 titles.
Yeah, like, what do you do? Can you really go back?
I made a promise. His family protected.
No, you didn't succeed the first time, or the second time.
The walls are closing in on all sides.
Did you try a third time?
You hurt my father.
Oh my god.
I hurt you back.
Yellowstone.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it'll be incredibly interesting to see if Red Bull are able to make that concept that Mercedes initiated work. But last year's RB19 was statistically the most successful Formula One car in history, so the RB20 this year has some big shoes to fill. Alex, what have the teams said so far about this year's brand new design?
Well, Steph, let me consult my notebook, which the eagle-eyed viewer may be able to spot is the notebook provided by a very different Formula One team. So apologies to Red Bull for having it out, but it fits nicely into my back pocket, so that's why. Anyway, massive distraction. So the team, what they've been saying about it is that Christian Horner himself says it's not a conservative evolution, because I think if you look at it sort of front on, other than the main takeaways behind the driver's shoulders, as it were, and around the engine cover and the airbox, the sort of nose, the front of the shape is not too dissimilar. It's everything further down the car that really has changed. So yeah, it's that blend of the familiar with the new. So I thought that was sort of Horner's key messaging. Now I'm going to fail to turn the page. Here we go. Max Verstappen said he first saw these designs at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix at the end of the year, and his reaction was, okay, that's something a little bit different. But yeah, as I said before with what Sergio Perez was saying, I think these are the most interesting comments in terms of what the team itself is saying, that it was really brave to have done this, because the RB20 as we see it now is not a zero-pod car. I know all the engineers in F1, and I can actually see Adrian Newey and Rob Marshall over the back of my laptop having a meeting where we've been very kindly allowed to film. So yeah, I'm sure they'll think I'm wittering on like a complete fool talking about this sort of thing. But the point is that Mercedes couldn't get it to work. So are we detecting something in Perez's words of it being really brave for Red Bull to have tried something that another team couldn't do? Is it potentially hubris? Is it the sort of thing of, well, we know there was development. We know the reason why Mercedes went down that path was because there were greater potential peak levels of downforce. It just couldn't successfully attain them with the floor and the suspension and everything moving around so much, the porpoising that we talked about so much in 2022. Does Red Bull think it can do that? That's the big question. Have they seen the potential as well, but actually got the solution and been able to do it? So that's gonna, if it comes, that's gonna be the key question. As of now, it's why have you taken on those notes, as it were?
Okay, let's bring it on to the drivers.
True.
And we'll start with the reigning Formula One champion, Max Verstappen. Obviously, he is the current driver to beat at the minute, but as we mentioned earlier, he drove the RB20 around Silverstone earlier this week, and we spied a little bit of the on-track action via the hotel at Silverstone. Alex, what are his thoughts on the car so far?
Well, he opened up with a joke in the roundtable session that I was in. He said, "What, how did it feel driving around that? Slippery, because it had been raining all day." So Max Verstappen never one to miss the open goal of an obvious question. Let's put it that way. But yeah, essentially, the sort of his main takeaway was, look, it's a shakedown, it's a film.
I mean, give a better question, maybe. If you want a better answer from Max Verstappen.
It's not going to be sort of about performance runs, but his main message was everything fired up as it should have done. Everything felt fine. Just in terms of at this stage, obviously the normal pre-season element to a car. But with what I thought was particularly interesting was a comment Adrian Newey made on stage. You'd have seen that in the live stream of the launch, where he said that the car behaved as it should have done in terms of what they did in the shakedown. So again, let's throw this back a couple of years. We had teams destroying floors during the shakedowns because of the porpoising and things like that. So that's an encouraging sign. But yeah, to take it back to Max Verstappen, obviously he is the world champion. He gets asked a whole range of questions, not just sticking to the Red Bull launch script. I was one of those who tried to go a bit off piste, and I said to him, Max, you've talked very openly about things you'd like to achieve throughout your motorsport career, going off doing endurance racing. Is racing for Ferrari something you'd like to achieve in your life, or something that you would like to go on to do in your life, given the news of the last few weeks? And essentially, he just took a moment to just think about what he wanted to say, because Max has this reputation of speaking his mind, which is well deserved, but he does only do it on things that he really, really wants to talk about. But his answer, was basically, look, I have no interest in going elsewhere. Obviously that wasn't the question, but that's the key message that he wanted to put out there. He's not thinking about it. It's not something that's come up or crossed his mind, but he did say never. And again, he sort of he acknowledged the fact
just
that
be a fan.
It's the allure of Ferrari. He understands why Lewis has gone there, but obviously still as surprised as anyone else. But
maybe he will do a Sebastian Vettel tour when he goes Ferrari. Everyone loves him.
The vibe is much the same as it has been since mid 2022. He is supremely confident. You get that air. He's surrounded by this scrum of reporters in the sort of lights going off and turning off and on after the sort of chaos of the post-launch stage event. And he's just sat there. He's cracked his Red Bull open. He's answering our questions. If he doesn't want to talk about things, he won't talk about it. Obviously there's the Christian Horner investigation. It was made very clear you can't ask him questions about that. One nevertheless came up. His PR jumped in, but Max, he still said a little bit about what he wanted to say, which was it's business as usual. And obviously that's still the main message from the rest of the team. But yeah, so far so much so normal with Max Verstappen, I'd say.
Det spelar ingen roll vilken dröm man har. Det viktiga är att man har den. För drömmar kan göra det omöjliga möjligt.
Can it? I don't think so.
There you go, reigning champion, cool, calm and collected as always. But for his teammate Sergio Perez, obviously going up against Max is a very tough job. There are people who will argue he did not perform as well as he should have last year in 2023. What does he have to do this year? Has he said anything to you, Alex, at the event so far about his expectations for the year ahead?
It was more the sort of sense of the question that he particularly got asked was, has the team set you any targets concerning, what you might have to do to secure, your job going forwards, essentially? And basically, Perez's answer was, look, there's a very busy run of races. I don't want any distractions. I just want to concentrate on doing that. So I think if we pick into the subtext there, it's, let's see how the first few races go. If they go badly, then of course the questions are going to keep coming. But his main thing is he just really wants to get off to a clean start. It was sort of a bit of a weird one at the start of last year. He was brilliant in Jeddah, brilliant in Baku, but was having those poor starts. Bahrain was one of those races where it didn't quite come off for him, and then obviously the season starts so long. The season goes on so long in Formula One these days that actually you think you could still look at Perez's 2023 campaign and say he was still pretty bad in some of the early rounds, just not the sort of immediate early rounds. So his main thing is that he just wants to get a strong base, develop from there really, and just not have the sort of...
And hopefully he will. At least win some more races, and hopefully just a good season. That if this is the last season with Redbull, he will land it having more fun than he had last year.
Sort of peaks and troughs that he had last year. Obviously, it was more a sort of a mountain, you know, up skiing up at the top of the black run, and then he came down it very quickly. But yeah, I think he just wants to be a bit more consistent and a bit more stable, and then ideally, if he achieves that would dampen down the question and the speculation. The problem is that we know that his contract's up, so it's obviously gonna keep coming. We know that silly season has kicked off very early with the Lewis Hamilton move to Ferrari, and that could have knock-on impacts everywhere because so many drivers are going to be wanting to get their futures up wrapped up nice and quickly. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it was more sort of just talked a little bit about the more thinking and understanding that he'd done about what went wrong in 2023. That, you know, particularly felt that there were some car development changes that contributed to his season going off the rails rather, or just definitely not being as good as he wanted it to be. But yeah, he's clearly a driver who, you know, understands that he's under pressure, but he's also been here before. There's quite often speculation about his future, so there wasn't a noticeable, you know, sense that he feels like he's in trouble or he's under pressure or that he's already been told he's got his marching orders. So again, with Perez, it's very much sort of as you were at the end of 2023.
Well, let's begin to wrap things up and talk about Red Bull as a whole, because they have high expectations going into 2024. The general consensus is that they are the team to beat, with multiple years now of this Venturi Tunnel era experience. Jake, do you think this is going to be a more competitive year for the title?
Well, they absolutely have to be the favourites, don't they? Ultimately, the RB19 last year's car was the class of the field. With the RB18, they set a level. The RB19, they set another level. And this year's objective has to be to get every single win this season, to go better than last season. The problem is everybody's converging. Ferrari, Mercedes, a lot of them
I mean, stop with the coping with Mercedes. They will not be there.
Using sort of tweaks that Red Bull was introduced previously. So getting back there for them has got to be the main thing. And then you've got McLaren, Aston Martin hoping to do the same thing, and other teams trying to bridge that midfield gap. So there's a lot at stake this season, and hopefully that kind of convergence of ideas on the marketplace will really bring an exciting field together. I'm just hoping that we do get a good season out of it.
Very much. I am looking forward to it as well. Alex, tell us about your final thoughts on the RB20 and what you expect to see from Red Bull in the 24 races in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think my main takeaway is it's just been really nice to see a car and see it look different, other than the livery, obviously, which is completely unchanged. And did we ever expect it to change? Of course not. It's a bit of a shame, really, you know, just looking around some of the cars that are here, or you know, maybe over there, over my shoulder there. They did used to do the old one-off thing. We saw that 2021 lovely white livery car for the Turkish Grand Prix. It'd be great to see them doing things like that again. But no, I think the main takeaway from that is that it did look, in terms of its design, there were elements of it that were noticeably different compared to most other teams, where they've either not revealed certain elements of the car, or, you know, things are just absolutely the same in very minor livery tweaks, or it's just that we're talking about carbon fibre or things like that. So that's my main takeaway from today, is just that it's nice to be talking about something different. I think that there is excitement building, that, you know, all this talk of convergence, all this talk of maybe the teams could be closer together, it could be in for a really, really exciting season. I love that. I just still, you cannot say that this team is not the overwhelming favourite, and the favourite for potentially every single race win this season. So it would be lovely for there to be a title fight. Things do tend to get closer when the regulations are stable, but the fact that we're seeing Red Bull embrace very, very different design elements, despite the fact we've seen them before at another team, that has me worried that they could then go a step further clear. It could be completely the opposite way. It could be that this completely undoes them, but until we see that, we can't know it. And unfortunately, we've got to stay very much in reality.
Well, we don't have long to wait and see, because F1's car launch season for 2024 has officially come to an end. With Bahrain testing just under a week away, we will finally get to see these cars out on track and get a little bit of insight as to who's got it right and who has got it wrong. Be sure to subscribe as we continue the coverage of the 2024 F1 season. Bye for now.
Oh shit, okay, and then we go. Must be that one. Yes. Okay, that was the Autosport. Let's see. Then we have we have the race. Let's see if they have something new to say. Than just like always really detailed on new stuff. Let's see what they say about the all the Mercedes stuff.
Red Bull.
Oh shit. Need to first do that and then we go there.
Red Bull has flipped the script in F1 launch season by revealing a surprisingly different 2024 car that has some ideas its fierce rival Mercedes has now abandoned. This was a handy time for Red Bull to buck its usual trend of not showing a real car at its launch, as seeing some striking RB20 details helped prevent it from being overrun by the controversy surrounding team principal Christian Horner. Horner is the subject of an external investigation started by Red Bull's parent company in the wake of serious allegations. He's continuing in his role while this takes place and was front and centre at the car launch. We'll explain how that played out a little later, but for now let's focus on the car, because whether by accident or design, the surprise inclusion of a real RB20 with lots of obvious new details meant the focus of this car launch actually stayed for the most part on the car. So real was this RB20 that the Red Bull technical team clearly wanted some of its details to be hidden as much as possible. The floor was unsurprisingly a bland dummy at the launch, the diffuser was blanked off, and there was a wall of people blocking the rear end in general, overseen by Chief Engineer Paul Monahan. Red Bull is bidding for a third straight championship double in 2024, and its RB20 has some fascinating ideas it might have adopted from Mercedes, just as its old...
I hope this is true, that they have actually copied Mercedes, and then they also succeed with it. Please, make this car even better.
rival abandons them to conform to the trends Red Bull had previously set. The car has run on track in a Silverstone shakedown, and we've seen it in person for ourselves. What's new on the RB20 could be summarised as Red Bull moving away from several major trends it started in this rules era, just as other teams, including Mercedes, flocked to follow the old direction. That hasn't gone unnoticed by Red Bull. Horner pointed out that a few cars look similar in theme to what we launched last year. While others are following, Horner says Red Bull's approach has been quite aggressive in certain areas to pursue new developments, and the car has some absolutely exquisite detail. The most eye-catching, at least to us, are the bits that resemble parts of last year's Mercedes that team has now abandoned.
So beautiful.
The changes start from the front, where the Red Bull nose tip now intersects the second plane on the front wing. It had previously been fixed to that element, creating a gap for air to flow through to the central section and the entry to the underfloor. We've seen others like Ferrari move in that direction for 2024, but the RB20's nose, which has a panel that makes us think a modification could be swapped in next week at testing, now connects to the main plane and the tip is wide and flat. Further back is where things get more interesting though. And if the back half of the car looks familiar, it's because the side pod inlet shape is similar to the initial Mercedes 2023 concept, and there are big 2023 Mercedes style shoulders on the engine cover. There's a fundamental shift in side pod design here. Almost everybody has incorporated the underbite style inlet Red Bull took to aggressive letterbox shaped lengths on its RB19, with the lower part of the inlet extended further forward. Now it's the top part that is most exposed on the RB20, creating a big surface beneath the wing mirrors. Underneath that is a tall vertical side pod inlet, and the side pod is slimmer than before with an even bigger initial undercut. The RB20 also has big cannons that run back from the halo along the engine cover. It looks like there might be a narrow sunken section between the shoulders and the very top of the engine cover behind the air intake. Interestingly, this comes just as Mercedes has switched to a more conventional side pod and engine cover profile. And Sergio Perez probably summed it up best when asked if he was surprised the car seems to have Mercedes design elements, and replied, yes, a bit. Given things like the vertical radiator inlet and hulking engine cover shoulders are very 2023 Mercedes, it's possible seeing that car last year triggered a thought that led Red Bull in a direction of resighting and shrinking the radiators and associated packaging as much as possible. But is it really Mercedes inspired? Or have Red Bull's own thoughts just coincidentally created something similar? Because there are some differences too. For instance, a vertical inlet is nothing new, just rare for this generation of car, and Red Bull's has actually enhanced the side.
Let's see, okay, that's 23. So they make open themselves.
Pod undercut in a way that pictures don't do justice, according to our man Mark Hughes, who has seen the RB20 in person at the launch. The radiator packaging is low in the side pod, which probably explains why the outside edge bulges less and is a flatter shape than last year. But the side pods are still serving an aerodynamic purpose, they just don't look like they house as much as before. As for the cannons, they could just be the obvious cooling route once you've made the radiator inlet vertical. But unlike what Mercedes had, Red Bull's cannons slope downwards very steeply at the back of the engine cover, which could be aerodynamic gold dust for routing the airflow to the diffuser and rear wing. Those cannons also bring the engine cover bodywork up high at the back of the car and combine with the way the slimmer side pods wash downwards to leave a lot of space for the airflow feeding the back of the floor and the rear wing area from the side.
Med stjärnbetyg från kunder och strålande priser från oss. Sök efter vad du än behöver på amazon.se idag.
Oh, Toyota, back in Formula 1, question mark? Come on.
There's clearly a lot of work that's gone into the RB20, and its choices even surprised its own drivers at first. Perez said that given the dominance of last year, you wouldn't imagine us changing the concept that much, and called it really brave. World champion Max Verstappen said he first
Is that why they titled the video that? Brave? Because... sorry,
saw the drawings of the RB20 at the last race of 2023, and thought, wow, that's quite different, but called it a controlled aggressive approach and not one the team has a question mark over. It fits with Red Bull being a step ahead of the others and finding limitations in existing designs sooner, then moving to new solutions that rivals don't even realise yet will be needed. This car appears to have moved the game on.
Wait, where is the coping of Mercedes? Shouldn't they know this? They have everything in the place. They have the people, they have the money, they have the tools. How did it fail? And not 1 year, 2 years, or maybe 3 years. What?
Everyone was migrating towards the old Red Bull, and now there's a new one which looks like more than just an evolution, and impressed another of our team on the ground at the launch, Ed Straw.
I had the privilege of being a few metres from the Red Bull RB20 when it was unveiled today here at Middleton Keynes, Red Bull's base, and although I had some idea what to expect from the spy shots, I was impressed by just how much Red Bull has done with this car. They said it was an evolutionary car, building on the success of last year, and it absolutely is. But what's really impressive is this team has come up with ideas, had the creative thinking to explore new opportunities, change the side pod bodywork and the approach to really create more performance. What's very, very clear is Red Bull has tried to, and perhaps has, taken the game on this year with the Red Bull RB20.
This car might well make rival teams think their fears about Red Bull's 2024 car were well founded. Red Bull was already the benchmark after its dominant 2023. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff said at his team's launch that it needs to be realistic about beating a team that is a fair chunk ahead. On top of its domination, Red Bull's success came despite minimising the development of its RB19 through the year. And McLaren boss Andrea Stella is adamant that means Red Bull will keep enjoying an advantage given the focus it was able to give the RB20 last year. The cost cap reductions infamously breached by Red Bull in 2021 and the superiority of the car meant Red Bull saw no need to produce a constant stream of updates through 2023. There were
Nice. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh shit. Is it poles? Must be poles.
were just two major bodywork changes, both around the radiator inlet area, and both came before the summer break, in Azerbaijan in April and Hungary in July. Stella's point is that massive upgrades not appearing on the RB19 didn't necessarily mean Red Bull wasn't enjoying a fruitful time developing the car. Red Bull wasn't compromised by its own lack of cash or limitations with production capacity, but it did have the cost cap limitation to consider and the harshest aerodynamic testing restrictions of any team. So when it was pleasantly surprised by how big its advantage was in the first phase of 2023, Red Bull realised it could divert its time and money to 2024. It still allowed Red Bull to develop its understanding throughout the season, even when the car's 2023 specification remained fairly static, then release its new ideas on the launch spec of the RB20. McLaren CEO Zak Brown fears that this might result in an unpleasant surprise for all of us in 2024.
Probably not.
Red Bull launched its new car amid the ongoing controversy surrounding team boss Horner, who made his first public appearance since Red Bull's parent company ordered an independent investigation into allegations about Horner's conduct. Horner has denied the allegations and remains in his role as Red Bull Racing team principal and CEO while this is carried out. That's why he was at the launch and was an active spokesperson. It made him the elephant in the room, even though there was a big attempt to make out that it's just business as usual. While the new car was a big enough talking point on its own to limit Horner's presence from being a total distraction, it is still a massive talking point. The investigation process started over a week ago and is too complex to rush just so that it can line up conveniently with an F1 schedule. That's why Horner was there at the launch, talking about Red Bull's phenomenal history and how the future is very bright, even with this saga happening in the background. He had media sessions and TV interviews around the launch, with a small catch. Red Bull said no questions would be allowed about the investigation. It wasn't a total gag order, so more general questions about the situation could be slipped in, and Horner did address the fact the investigation is happening. He even admitted there has inevitably been a distraction, but was for the most part insisting it has been business as normal. The Horner saga means Red Bull does face a potentially huge destabiliser. Nothing that's happened so far should have taken Red Bull's eye off the ball with the RB20, but any cracks that start to emerge in the team's foundations could make things more complicated. The allegations and the fact Red Bull is taking them so seriously have sparked quite wild speculation about if Horner will survive in his job, whether the
I mean, Lewis going to Ferrari was so... That would never happen.
There is a decided...
So... People that are writing the news, they... Do they know actually what happened or not? Who knows?
Decisive power struggle going on in the background, and that there may even be a rift with the Verstappen camp. It's worth pointing out that Max Verstappen and Horner played all of this down at the launch. Horner said the only thing that focuses everybody's attention is the car, and described Red Bull as very united and one team, including the shareholders in that. And Max said his relationship with Horner is like always, even brushing off an attempt by a Red Bull press officer to shut down a question about the speculation to get that answer across. The launch proved that it's easy to say it's business as usual for Red Bull, but will that be the reality if this hangs over the team beyond testing and into the start of the season?
Yeah, wow, like... Man... But, I mean, so many times you hear something that have a snowballed to some weird levels. So, I mean, for me, I feel like this could be just fake news, but the news of bringing up something that isn't that big, but they talk it up like it's the biggest thing that have ever happened. This will bring down Red Bull. And I feel like no, probably will not be. Okay, then we have the last thing to see, what Peter Winsor and Scarps think about the new Red Bull RB20. Oh, okay, and then we also need sound.
You kind of have to be a bit guarded because Red Bull have historically been so poor at giving us any real information at launches, and the RB20 was no difference to any of the other ones. They showed us a render which had lots of shadows and hid lots of the details. They showed us a real car on stage which was very poorly lit. We've obviously seen the car on track at Silverstone that was in the wet and taken from someone's mobile phone from 2 miles away. So we haven't got a lot of genuine idea of exactly what's going on. There's some features that we know are definitely there, so we can cover them off. And there's some features that everybody's guessing at, which are the side pod inlets that we really do have to deep talk. But I guess the key thing is we look back and think, well, what did Red Bull have to do to their RB19? You know, Adrian Newey was quite clear and said it was an evolution. Christian Horner has said that it's not. It's you know, it's more of a radical departure for them. But you know, last year's car, they called it the perfect car. What was its poor points? I can only think of a couple, which was that it was slow to warm its tyres up, which obviously affected the first laps and qualifying, but its in-race tyre performance was
almost unmatched,
and that's probably where we saw the best of them. And the other time we saw them struggle was at circuits with bumps where they had to raise the ride height, and it just put the floor out of its working window, and everything fell apart from them. And I don't think either of those are necessarily things that you want to eradicate completely. I think you could improve them slightly, but on every other aspect of performance, that car was the best. So they just had to kind of tweak it. And I think they've actually gone,
so many times have I got now from this?
They've actually gone a lot further than just a slight evolution.
Didn't I get 5?
Talk about the car up front.
Oh, shit. So 5 diamond ores from... Oh my god, this is depressing. Mine out this... But I'm not mine out to get diamonds, but if I did... This would be really depressing. Yeah, 5. So 9 diamonds. And a diamond ore. Nine diamond ore from this dig out. Nice.
Big visible changes. They've gone for a slightly longer nose. The nose now extends over that front main plane element, so it's a full-length nose like we saw some of the cars back in 2022 have. And I think there's some shape change to come there because it just doesn't look a finished part. But there's not a lot you can do. One feature of the nose that's not there is the little hole that we always see at the front of the nose, which is strictly speaking for driver cooling purposes. That's missing. That could be for 2 reasons. One, that this is a fake nose, they've not put it in there because it does have some aerodynamic advantages at the sort of stagnation point at the front of the nose. But what we have seen is Red Bull have got 2 little scoops on just above the driver's feet on that removable panel halfway up the nose, which are part of the new regulations which allow the teams to have much bigger driver cooling slots after the Qatar issues last year. And they've gone straight to putting 2 little inlets there. Again, I don't think there's a massive aero performance from losing one and gaining the others or anything, or I don't think it even has a particularly big effect on driver cooling, but that's something we can note that's changed. Elsewhere,
oh shit, lava.
Push rod with the anti-dive setup, downwash setup, that front suspension's all very much the same. Cockpit and the roll hoop area, again,
that scared
all very
me.
much the same. And then another big change that we can see is how they've packaged the cooling. So
here's some blocks to
hot air comes out from the radiators and the intercoolers and sweeps up inside the bodywork. And as previously, it would come out through louvers and a big double-barreled panel on the engine cover. They've just made that a bit more aggressive this year. It's very much like Mercedes ran last year with that big double barrel with the big gullies on there, which is all about just kind of taking that area behind the halo in the cockpit and just fairing it all back and making that a cooling outlet. Again, nothing really important there. Rear wing, everything around the back of the car, rear suspension, exactly as we've seen. So that really just kind of leaves us one area, which are the side pods, which was probably always the area that we were going to see. They've obviously done stuff to the floor. They've obviously worked on that. We can't see that, so we can't talk about it. So if we remember last year, Red Bull went through about 3 iterations of side pod where they slowly brought the inlets higher and higher with a big lip underneath them to get that big undercut working the floor edge underneath. And I expected them to go sort of super radical by having almost the inlet behind that top beak and the air to downwash inwards. They've actually gone the opposite direction, and this is probably again just a packaging and an internal air loss idea. So now we still have a very high, almost beak front to the side pod, like big, very duckbill shape. And the inlet is the question. So in all of the images, all people can really see is a vertical inlet, almost a bit like the Mercedes Zero pod had early last year and the year before. Now, I don't believe that's the side pod inlet. I think that is what we're seeing on a number of cars where it's effectively an S-duct, like we see, particularly on the Ferrari. I believe the true inlet is actually underneath that duckbill top lip to the side pod, and it's very forward facing, very, very small, but in that area, it's really efficient at actually grabbing the air and directing it straight past the internal crash structures inside the front of the side pods and then straight to where the radiators are. So it may be that they looked at having what we call the underbite side pod where the air goes over, but found that just packaging the air to get through to the radiator was too much, so they've actually lifted that beak up. It's become an overbite, as we call it, and taken the air underneath. Now, we can't really see it in any photographs. We've seen it in the 3D renders if you lighten them and play about with them. So that's my best guess. I'm quite accepting that I could be proved wrong on this. Everyone else seems to think it's this vertical slot. Again, I'm not so sure. But it just shows that they are finding areas where they can still play with the shapes of these cars within the regulatory boxes that they've got, and where they've got to put things like side impact structures and where they have the radiators. The rest of the side pod is actually surprisingly conventional. They don't have much of a gully going down the side pods. They don't have these kind of aggressive water slides that we've seen with Aston Martin and Alpine in particular. I think this could be for two reasons. One, Newey just doesn't really kind of believe in that concept. But what we do see is those gullies, they're very slight gullies that you have, go down, and then just about where the engine is, dip down suddenly at the end. Now, I think the reason they've had to go this shape is because of the radiator package. Now, we know that Red Bull struggled with weight in the past couple of years, and they are the only, with Red Bull and with Honda, are the only package where they retain the big air-to-air turbo intercoolers in the side pods. Everyone else has gone to these modern 3D printed ones that can be mounted inside the car with just a low temperature radiator mounted somewhere else. Red Bull still have these really bulky intercoolers. Now, I'd guess that rather than going with the water to air setup that is probably aerodynamically slightly better, but it's heavier. So I think until we see the bodywork off, that looks like the reason they've not got too aggressive in that area is because of these big intercoolers. And apart from that, it looks like they've made no other major changes to the car, just thought in very different directions, and sets us up for a fascinating year, because at this stage, who's won the design competition of the new cars? And is it Mercedes? Is it Ferrari? Is it McLaren? I think at the moment Red Bull are probably looking the best. They've got the best starting point, and they've done the most clever solutions. So we'll see for certain in testing next week.
Next week? Is that true? Next week.
So, Mrs. Ramos.
Shush. Next week. Next week. Wait. No one really needs to look stuff up. Oh shit. Let's see how. Okay, here's the testing. So we need to have that. Can I... Fuck, I hate... There. Okay, so wait. Yeah, that's day 1. Next week. In 4 days and 8 hours. Nice. And then on 1st March, in 13 days, 12 hours and 15 minutes, training 1 in Formula 1 will start. If this time is still right. Okay, so next week in 4 days. Hype! How the fuck will I watch this? Is the question. Okay, now that's been seen. What can I be watching now? I mean, everything that I've thought about have been watched. Oh shit. Formula 1. I don't think I have anything more to watch. So we can end the stream with mining the last of the melons. And also, the only reason why I use wash them is like I do with the other tools also, is I use them until I think, okay, time to change them out. And then I will repair them, you can say, by XP. When every tool is used down to the last one. So that's why for the Fortune axe. So it's the I mean, it's not good for getting so much melons you want. See, we want to place we want it here. No, I want rather more of it here. God damn it. Okay, let's see where. Can place that also there. Then movie. All this. Oh wait. Yes, we can. Want all lapis lazuli, all gold, all emeralds. Then iron. Then we also plan for the future. Wait, lapis like that. That can be still there. That can also be there. So here we have all the stuff I for now got from this place. That we need to fix. Now we make one more row. Then we move everything from that to this. Oh, I want that. How's that done? We go down and fix this, and then we can end the stream. Okay, that's done. Then just well, now we're just waiting for the test season, and that would be amazing seeing how bad the Mercedes car is, and then seeing the first race. But that's in 4 days and more than a week. We will see. But I will